I'll start with an opening statement, not as long as yesterday's. I thought the things that I wanted to get across to you guys is obviously the buzz around our program, really since last year to where we are now, has been great. The season ticket sales, that whole number, and to be at unprecedented numbers just gets us excited. But I have stressed to our players several times that are in our workouts right now. I'd say we're probably about 95% there. We have some high school kids that still haven't come to campus yet, and some roster additions we're still working through. So we got the majority of our team here. They've been very, very good. This will be our third week of summer workouts, and they've been great. But just because people expect you to have success and people are saying good things doesn't necessarily make it's going to happen. So we've really kind of realigned our guys, just tell them that sometimes the biggest proponent to having success is the people to become complacent, and that's the edge we're really trying to work on this summer, and I think our guys are doing a really good job. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
What's your big focus between now and the start of camp?
You know, the NCAA allows us to have 8-hour work weeks with our kids. Tank and his crew takes up a large percentage of that, but we try to twice a week get one-on-one with our players through either individual drills. There's some limitations on what we can do, but we can get on the grass with them and really do a lot of good work. And then at the end, we can do some football-related activities that don't involve actually running plays, but we can line up, and we call it ASM&M. It's alignment, shifts, motions, and movements. And offensively and defensively, we do on anything we can to have pre-snap communication and post-snap communication. And that does us a lot of good, especially since we're trying to work so many new guys that were here in the spring, but also new guys that just joined us in June. We have 2 or 3 transfers that have now joined us that really are going through our communication and our way of doing things for the first time.
But you talked about the buzz. Obviously, you guys are in the middle of building your 24 class and beyond. How has that pitch evolved year over year, just with the success you had? And obviously, you've had some success on official visit weekends.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, first and foremost, we're trying to wrap up our 23 class, right? So we still have a couple scholarships that we're working through now, and it's been really evident to me through this, the portal world, that some of these more experienced players, based on the success recently of our current players that have gone to the NFL, it's been a huge effect, probably even bigger than the high school recruiting, to be quite honest. And then definitely in high school recruiting, in-state especially, it's really starting to pay off the way that we've been able to recruit the state, and some of these players are at a level now that gets you going. I think just the buzz from last year getting to a point of 7-1, and obviously we didn't finish the way we want, but a lot of people know that height, the crescendo, the getting ranked in the CFP, all that stuff is unprecedented. And then when I'm out in the community and when I'm around donors and ticket holders and just random people I bump into going to the grocery store, right? Like, it's just a general excitement. I don't know if I'm more cognizant than I've ever been, but the amount of Illinois flags you see around town, people wearing stuff when you're out of town, bumping into people that have Illinois gear on, it just seems to be at a point where it's never been as high as I have since I've been here.
It seems like you've made a point to recruit in the state of Illinois. Can you talk about how important it is to win that battle across, especially against your in-state rivals?
I think I go back to our first year, and we signed, I believe, half of our class is from the state of Illinois, not just Chicago, but downstate, in-state. And now those players, Hank Beatty's, Jared Beatty's, a couple kids out of Joliet Catholic, a lot of those kids are on the verge of really jumping into our lineups and in a major capacity. And now those guys have friends that they know, right? And that's paid off for us right now in the recruiting cycle. We really probably have increased the competition that we're going against as well, right? Like, I remember our first year going against teams that were in our, not just necessarily in our division, but in the Big Ten Conference, and we weren't even able to really get in a race. And now we're competing against the best of the best, not only in our conference, but in the country. We're not going to win them all, but we're definitely going to take our swing.
Coach, you won the first Big Ten division title, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much you talk about that with you guys now going forward?
Well, I actually talked about it last year. My first Big Ten title was under the old way of doing it, where you had to, just win it during the regular season, and then the first 2 years of divisional play, we won the title as well. So I think this year, with the known end of divisional play, it presents a very unique opportunity for me to be the only coach that's done it the last time in non-divisional, first 2 times in divisional, and now a chance at this season. So it's something cool to talk about, but again, it's just something that could happen at the end of the year if you do things right. But I'm a big history guy, and I like to preach to our guys. I like to teach them college football history, and it's definitely a point of interest.
You said you got a couple left in 23. What are you guys prioritizing?
You'll find out. I think the biggest thing that, as we've figured out here since this portal world entered, there's now there's actually dates that specify when kids can get in and can't get in, but a loophole in there is some graduate kids can get in really at any time. I think it makes you appreciate what you have on your roster. I've kind of said it's always, and not just in terms of, I'm not making any reference to NIL or payments or anything like that. I think that the portal world for me is a lot like free agency in the fact that if you know you have a position of need, you can acquire it through the portal, right? And look for certain guys. And we've kind of taken that approach year round, but I think here at the end, when you're getting down to the last couple scholarships, you really truly just hone in on where you see your team and where you could possibly use some extra bodies to help you. I don't know if necessarily an immediate start, right? But someone that you feel could play an immediate role in your team.
A couple years into this, how much better do you feel that you have a grasp coming into this portal world that you've been in now, that you're looking forward to 24 and beyond?
I would say that my feeling of just getting the right evaluations on the right guys. There's the obvious guys that when they enter, it's a big announcement, right? These guys got in the portal and they're coming off teams that maybe we compete against or they're in the Power 5 conference. But we've had more success with guys out of maybe non-Power 5s or even lower divisions, or guys that kind of have overachieved in the market they're in and they're just looking for their big opportunity. Guys that come in with 1 or 2 years of eligibility, and some of them haven't been direct starters, but they've really helped the chemistry of our room, and that's kind of what we've probably done a better job now than ever.
Brett, is the summer still a time when you can call up guys that you know, whether it's college or pro or even maybe high school, and chop it up and say, hey, you're doing this, I really like it. How are you coaching it up?
You talking about X's and O's?
Yeah.
Our coaches definitely do that during, probably immediately after the season is done. We go through a little bit of that before spring ball. I think once you get in spring ball, you kind of establish what you want to do. Defensively this year, obviously, we have a new play caller, so we transitioned out of some of the stuff that wasn't good. Hopefully, tried to make some adjustment to make it better. Offensively, I think Barry's very excited about year 2, and then special teams has been kind of almost not a complete transition, but Robbie's brought in a lot of really good thoughts and ideas special teams wise. My staff and I went to a couple OTAs in the NFL. We had coaches that went to several OTAs kind of across the country. So I do that every year. I try to take my coordinators with me to an OTA. We went to the Giants, and it was kind of it was exactly the weekend of the smoke show out there. So kind of got limited because of that weather condition. But other than that, it's been good.
But the junior college market has been seemingly somewhere you guys have tried to exist. What's that give you, and how did that kind of come to be?
Yeah, I'm not saying we stumbled into it, but a lot of the first guys that we took out of JC that have come in and had success were also high school qualifiers, right? So you look at a guy like Isaiah Adams, who literally since the day we signed him has made a huge impact into our program, and I think next year could be one of the best guards in college football. He was a full qualifier, but he was underlooked because of the Canadian thing, and it was also during COVID, so it's kind of that age phrase that I use all the time: undersized, under-recruited, underdeveloped is a good thing because they can change immediately. Zy Christopher was a full qualifier, so it's guys that we've kind of targeted in that environment. So not necessarily a traditional JC guys because they've had a bad academic track record. It's more guys that we feel were underdeveloped or under-recruited and bring them into our program.
Coach, what kind of say do the coaches have in the scheduling going forward? You guys talk about that at all? And what do you think, how hard it is?
You talk about conference scheduling?
Yeah,
Like
conference
overall,
scheduling.
like in our
Yeah,
conference?
yeah, what
I think as coaches, we've had a change in leadership within the conference, right?
Right.
And been very impressed with that transition. But I think as coaches, we get to maybe speak or hear our voice, but I know the ADs and the powers that be, they kind of set that whole thing up. I know they wouldn't do their due diligence and trying to figure out exactly how we could make this happen. I saw what was kind of trending and where it was going, and it's exciting time. We'll use it. We're already using it. First year in this new format, we play USC, Michigan, and Ohio State. So those 3 marquee games, 2 of them on the road. But for us to say we get to go to USC, I think you got to use that to our advantage in recruiting. So it's just something that it's a new world. I'm obviously focusing on the year ahead of us, but for us to do our due diligence in the recruiting world, we got to think about things beyond. So as coaches, we definitely had some input, but I don't know how much of a vote we had.
Where do you land on the protected rivalries? Namely, who you guys got,
Yeah,
and just the way
it was from one of the first proposals to where we are. I thought obviously Northwestern and Purdue have a long history. 2 games that have a trophy, and I think if you look at all of them, obviously certain teams have 3. Well, they have 3 trophy games. It seemed like that was a point of emphasis, which I think the conference loves. The only thing that I kind of just voiced my opinion on was I still think Big Ten is rich in history and tradition. I think they like to see us play Iowa. I think they like to see us play Wisconsin. I think they like to see us play Minnesota. Not that we don't want to go east and play those, but I think for building ticket sales and doing what everybody wants to do right now to keep our stadiums the way they need to be. I think you got to kind of protect them in some capacity.
So Luke Altmaier's going to the Manning passing camp. What could that do for him?
You know, ever since that kind of happened, I started having that when I was at Arkansas. I've developed I just was texting with Archie and Peyton this morning. Just Luke's going there, and obviously the thing I think it breeds is you're around a bunch of other good players that aren't in your scheme, so there's not this whole guarded, don't give away tactical information. I think quarterbacks are very unique. Quarterbacks and head coaches are a lot alike, right? When you have great success, you get all the credit. When you have great failure, you get a lot of the blame. I've always said, for me publicly, I'll never really ever criticize my quarterback, because once you do that, you open up criticism from everybody. So I wanted Luke to just kind of go and enjoy, be around a lot of the good quarterbacks, not just the quarterbacks that are there, but the quarterback coaches that are there helping them. I mean, how can't you get better by hearing some of those guys talk? So every quarterback I've ever had go to it has been very, very pleased when they come back.
I guess with these big June recruiting weekends the last couple of years, how much do those kind of set up the rest of the cycle for you guys?
Well, it's kind of what we base it all off of. We did have some earlier April and May visits this year, and I really did that because last year, I remember early on there was a guy that we lost to a divisional team that we felt if we had gotten him on campus early, we probably would have had his equal shot. So we really looked at it and wanted to make sure that anybody that wanted to make an earlier decision in June, we tried to get them on campus. So we adjust every year. So we definitely did that, and it paid off for us. We had some kids commit early that were before June, that were originally scheduled in June, but we just moved them up because we wanted them. I think every year is a little bit different. I could see part of the reason we also keep our visits to June is during the month of May, none of our kids are on campus. Right? It's really hard to have a visit weekend when for us, I don't care what other people do, for us, our greatest recruiters on visit weekends are our players. And we'll have paintball in the stadium with these guys. They'll have meals with them. They'll break bread. They'll have positional meetings with them. Literally, we had a visitor this week during the week, and one of the great things they were able to do is we had a team bonding. We had paintball in the stadium Wednesday night. He was the only kid there, right, with them. And then, there were a lot of times where they were one-on-one with all of our players, and our players are such great salesmen. That's probably one of the biggest things that we stay away from May because our kids aren't here.
Brett, we talked with Josh yesterday about Memorial Stadium renovations that have happened and are to come. Even if they're not on the field stuff, for you as a coach fighting tooth and nail to try and sell kids to Illinois, how important, how much do you appreciate stuff?
Well, I go back to, when I was a player from 88 to 92, we came here and had great games against Illinois when I was at Iowa, and the environment that was here was very, very special. But the game has evolved a lot since then. That was over 30 years ago, right? So just technology in the stadium, the graphics, the scoreboards, the interaction, all of that's relevant, all of that's important. So I don't really get knee deep into those details. Obviously, Josh is at the forefront of that, stadium renovations and all that go into that. Just the things they've done in the exterior have been really noticeable to me, and hopefully that's noticeable to the fans. I know they've really done a lot of work to try and gauge, two areas, parking and an entrance into the stadium, and then points of contact when they're in the stadium to make the fan experience good. So all of that's a positive. Again, the best thing I can do is hopefully win games and put them in the seats, but anything that's on the outside world looking in helps all of us.
It seems some of the guys we've talked to, especially portal guys, you were an initial point of contact for them. Where does that come from, and kind of how did you develop that?
You know what? I get very hands-on in recruiting. We focus in, we'll have for me, a Coach B top 20 list, and that's my focus. But in portal recruiting especially, a lot of times those kids are so easily swayed by early conversations. And if you get a kid that's non-Power 5, he's never really truly been recruited. So I think when they hear from a head coach, someone that's got the experience, that's big. Jay Kaiser and Pat Hamilton are kind of my direct contact, and I remember specifically several times this year during fall, during the winter months, getting a text, hey, at 11:20, hey, you up? This kid just went in the portal. Do you want to make contact? Here's the number, and I'll reach out, and sometimes I would be blown away that they're up. So I think that's an initial thing with me, and I like to do it for the portal kids that we're really truly after. I'm usually pretty heavily involved just because it's a different type of recruiting.
Brett, what's your thoughts on player development at the high school level here in state? Just now that you've been around here enough, you've been around high school coaches, you get practice tape all the time.
It's a great point. Twofold, you got to kind of get a picture of where they're coming from, right? Some schools, you'll go to a high school football staff that might have more coaches on the field than I do, right? And those kids have been developed and coached and brought along. then you have kids maybe from maybe smaller schools or rural areas where they might have the head coach and maybe a coordinator or two, and they've really got a big ceiling in front of them. So it's something that we constantly look at, and I think that's an advantage for us here in Illinois because we understand it a little bit better than everybody else. I think what's really begin to track for us, and you guys probably catch on to this, I don't really do a lot of social media following or acknowledgement when we offer kids, because when I do that, it brings attention from a lot of our competitors. We always say that easiest way to get an offer is to say that Illinois offered you because a lot of people follow. But I do think there's a certain amount of diligence that we do into, okay, what's their background, what's their history, where are they coming from, what's the ceiling, and that's what excites us a lot.
Time for a couple more.
Can I, maybe a throwaway,
Yeah.
but do you have an update on when the uniforms might be out there?
There is a supply chain issue, right? But we're not going to have a problem for the season. But I would have liked to have done it sooner or later because I'd love to have it out ahead of our first official visit weekend. So really, when they become available, and I want to do it the right way, right? We have certain things that are in, but I don't want to kind of just halfway do it. I want to fully do it, and I do want, as much as I want to have the public see it and be a part of it, I want our players to be engaged with it, right? One of the things I always say to our players, they don't see me mic'd up in a locker room. They don't see me do a lot of things in front of them, because when I'm in front of them, I want them to know it's genuine. It's between us. So that'll probably be the merit to what we go with. I know right now the intention is them to shoot a video that has them in their new uniforms for a game day experience for our fans, and that's when it'll probably get released.
Because there's a bunch
New
of,
helmet is awesome.
there's a bunch of former Lion players out there coaching all over the place. Without naming names, how important is it for you to establish those relationships with the guys you didn't maybe coach, but they come back here?
You talk about high school?
Yeah, high school coaches.
Well, high school, college, pro, really everywhere, right? The one thing that I've really kind of enjoyed experiencing here is a lot of these guys that are now coaches in high school, college, and pro, I played against them, I coached against them, right? And it's kind of cool because it'll be this happy medium of them busting me up or vice versa. John Butcher, right, was one of the first players ever here that played at Illinois and Iowa, right? So I was with him at Iowa, competed against him at Illinois, and now we've recruited his school very hard, right? And to build that relationship's awesome. The guest captain thing that we do all fall, we bring in a guest captain every year that we build relationships there. We went to the Giants, right? And is it Jihad Ward? Is that right?
Yeah.
Walk in and he like lit up like a Christmas tree, and like he's a very outspoken individual, right? And to see his love of the University of Illinois to a bunch of coaches he didn't know while we were there with his organization was pretty cool. So I think the Illinois players, especially now with our little bit of resurgence, they've been waiting for things to happen, and now that it's begun to happen, I think they're very proud.